Hello everyone, I'm Nini FC and this is Blue Lines TV, and today I'm bringing the match review for our game against Everton yesterday. We beat them 2-1. Conte used a lot of our youngsters, and basically, again, for me, it was another bipolar performance. Now, I'm going to get into the player-by-player review so you guys can get an understanding of who I think fared well and who didn't. Starting with Caballero. Now, I thought Caballero had a decent game. He made a lot of very good point-blank saves, but there was a small period, especially in the second half, where he made two silly errors that put the team under pressure, and there were massive possibilities for Everton to actually score. He did manage to, pull off some fantastic saves to stop them. That kind of detracts his performance for me a tiny bit. Some of his distribution was a tiny bit iffy, but I think once he got over that, 5 to 10 minute spell, he got back to his good form. So overall, I have to say it was a decent performance by him. And he's a decent backup option to Courtois. Moving on to the back three, yes. Starting with Christensen. And Christensen is just composed beyond his years. The guy is comfortable in possession, comfortable playing out. His decision making is always on point. He's always in the right position. He's always distributing the ball correctly. He knows who to pass to. The guy is a football player and he should be playing every single week now. That's how good he is. Other than David Luiz, he's been the most impressive defender at Chelsea. I mean, he's starting to look like the best defender for me now. That's how it's starting to look like. Honestly, Conte has to find a way for him to play, or he has to change the system. I'm sorry, when I look at someone like Kale, for example, even though it's not like he's been awful, but it's just his limitations that just don't help the team. I explain them why tactically. For example, when we get pressed in, he's never an outlet to help us relieve pressure and play with the ball out. He never offers that. He doesn't really do much with his distribution, even when especially in this game when he was getting forward, most of his passes were going backwards or sideways. He doesn't offer anything with his distribution. And out of his attributes, what really makes him accustomed to playing on the left-hand side of the defence? Now, I think Conte needs to get over this captaincy nonsense. Christensen should be playing week in, week out. He could easily fulfil the role on the left-hand side. He was doing that for Dortmund. He was playing on the right-hand side sometimes. And there were a few, not for Dortmund, for Briss and watching Gladbach. And there were a few times where he even played in midfield. The guy needs to play. The more games he plays, the better he's going to get. There's only one thing he needs to do, which he will do because the guy's still only young. He's only 21. Just needs to bulk up and get bigger. But again, he's not going to change that in a month. That's going to be in the future. So imagine him in the next 3 years when he's even bigger, more muscular, and obviously stronger. It's going to be a phenomenal defender. Moving on to Rudiger. And again, Rudiger, we saw some nice bits of play from him. We saw his trademark dipping, pass that he does. His positioning was decent in this game as well. Everton didn't really cause us any problems. I'm going to get into that later on, but there's still a few things he does that really gets on my nerves. And I'm sorry, I keep comparing him to Zuma. I compare him to Zuma because Rudiger did replace him. Zuma wasn't doing most of these mistakes that Rudiger's able to get away with because of his price fee. How many times has he given away silly fouls? He's getting too tight to defenders. He's constantly giving away fouls. And what's really annoying me is that, as I keep stressing a lot now, we keep giving free chances to the likes of the Evertons, Crystal Palaces and Watfords, where they want a chance from a set piece because they know that our defending from set pieces isn't as elite and you've got a chance of creating something. And Rudiger is still constantly giving away silly fouls. And also, of course, when he plays on the right-hand side, he doesn't have that same... In my opinion, that relationship on the right-hand side hasn't been as tight until I saw, Moses and Aspie from last season. That was basically a brick wall. Team's going to get by that. They didn't even attempt to attack down the right-hand side. It needs to get back to that type of defending. Obviously, with Rudiger, he's got some limitations in his game. It's just, too many unnecessary fouls, clumsiness, and erratic behaviour. I'm not quite too sure about him, if I'm just being honest. Moving on to the midfield, and yeah, of course, it was a big surprise in this game today. Drinkwater played. It looks like maybe he picked up a slight knock in this game, unfortunately. Hopefully he recovers quickly. And Ampadu played in midfield. Now, it's good that Conte played him. Speaking on Ampadu, of course, I thought it was a very confident performance. There were a few times his distribution was quite poor, But we have to look at the fact that it's his confidence to attempt those passes. It's his confidence to play them. You can see the idea, and that's good, because sometimes, too often, too many youngsters, sometimes they get phased because, it's an audition for me. The pressure gets to them unfairly, I must say. But I think Ampadu, of course, with his lower league experiences, playing with Exeter's first team, for example, that's what's really helped alleviate him, mentality-wise. He can cope with that pressure because he's already been accustomed to it already. Was it one of the best young performances I've seen from a young player at Stamford Bridge? No, it's not. It doesn't have to be. What I like from him, his positioning in the right positions every time him and Drinkwater were together. And there's one key thing to Ampadu where, the guy could probably be a future captain if he does get a career at Chelsea. His communication. He's very confident. And I'm making this point, I can kind of see why maybe Conte will like him, because he kind of reminds Conte of himself when he was young. A type of player that isn't phased on the big occasions. He'll communicate, he'll tell people where to go, position himself, going for the tackle, he'll go in for any tackle, very brave, and he's the type of player where if a manager gives you an instruction, he's going to follow it and he's going to listen. And Ampadu showed that. And now we keep talking about having a lack of midfield options. We've got a fifth choice midfielder now in Ampadu. So Conte has someone that he knows he can use when he needs to. And honestly, playing in our system, it's not as if much comes from our midfielders anyway, and it comes to building up our attacks. Mostly they're the screens in front of the back three, and Ampadu showed that if relied upon, he can easily fulfill it, in my opinion. Moving on to Drinkwater, we've got to realise Guy hasn't played a lot. Even when it was announced that he would be starting in this game, I knew that he wasn't 100% match fit, as was shown afterwards. So there were a few rusty things in his performance, but again, you can see what he's going to offer with his passing from deep, his tackling, his positioning, his strength. Like I was saying throughout the summer, I think he's a good addition to the team, and he complements what Conte would want from his midfield players. And I think it was a very promising performance. Once he gets back to full match fitness, we're going to have a pretty strong squad, in my opinion. Now, moving on to the front three, starting with, actually, before I even really, I can't even fully delve into performances of the front three too much, because I have to explain the tactics behind it. Now, with Everton, as I did predict, they did play a 4-3-3, and what their hope was that they wanted to obviously defend in low blocks like I predicted, and they kept it very tight in the midfield. Now, what Everton's plan was, I know that word's called Catenaccio, but I always feel like it's a bit too football hipstery to use those kind of terminology. But of course, basically the plan was keep it tight in midfield and force the play out wide. That's why Kennedy was struggling to get forward as much, not because he had a bad performance. That's why Musonda couldn't get into the game. I'm going to go into Musonda later on. The only benefit to this was that because Willian was tucking inside and the play was kind of congested on the left hand side a bit, that gave space for Zappacosta to bomb forward at will. And I have to say, I'm starting to like Zappacosta more now. He's got some limitations. Hopefully he can get better on them, but it looks like he's starting to mask his limitations with his enthusiasm, his work rate, his drive, and he reminds me of like a Zamprota type of fullback. And I think, as I was saying earlier, it's a nice contrast to have a wing back in Zappacosta who is direct, will get forward, and you have someone like a Moses who links the play up and good defensively. And I think we've got very strong options on the right wing back for any situation we need in certain games we play. Good performance, but again, because Everton's system was defensive, keep the low blocks, keep it tight in midfield, we were getting snuffed out. So basically, Musonda and Willian couldn't get on the ball at all, really, because you've got to think when Everton parked the midfield, their midfield three in front of their back five, it was. Musonda and Willian are collecting the ball in those half spaces. Now, of course, when Willian's collecting the ball, what Willian was doing to alleviate, obviously, getting man marks, was dropping deeper, dropping too deep, where the only benefit it had was allowing Zappacosta to push forwards. Now, with Musonda, his performance wasn't the greatest, but when I watched it, I could understand completely why. Now, when you look at Musonda, whenever he plays, he's always collecting the ball out wide in wide areas. Playing in this system, he was collecting it in the half spaces. That's the space, between the middle and out wide. And anytime he's getting the ball, there were 2 players on him coming from behind every single time. Now, when you play in those half spaces with your back to goal, basically you have wingers, really they're inside forwards, but it's a much more different style of play, because you've got to think Musonda has to hold off 2 people, and he's not the strongest. He's not collecting the ball in comfortable positions and situations, and no space is being made. Now, he had 2 things that didn't help Musonda. First of all, there wasn't Eden Hazard, because Eden Hazard just attracts people and creates the space, and he doesn't have Michy Batshuayi, because, like I keep saying, I understand why Michy plays like he does for Chelsea, but he just doesn't fit the system Conte wants. And I'm thinking, Conte, if you're going to use Michy, you have to adapt how we play to get the best out of him. You want Michy getting on the end of things, playing on the last line. You need to create the space for him to play. Now, Michy can't play the centre forward obviously in the front three in this system, because when you play as a centre forward, you have to be comfortable dropping deep. Now, by dropping deep, what you do is you create space for the 2 wingers. You create space for the 2 inside forwards opposite you. So you need to have a very good touch and control, spatial awareness, all of that. And Michy can't do that, because whenever he's in those central positions, he doesn't move. He doesn't make the centre backs work. He's very static. Now, if you've got a static centre forward and you're an inside forward in this system where Everton have packed the midfield, they're playing very deep, the only support you have is wide on your left and wide on your right and the wing backs, and then you've got the midfielders there who are more defensive screens. It makes it very hard for the inside forwards to really get in the game and do anything. I think Musonda, he did the most decisive thing in the game. Obviously, amazing cross. I thought that didn't get much credit. Amazing cross for Rudiger in the end. Fantastic spin pace that took out. It was a pinpoint cross. It took out all of the Everton defence, but it wasn't made easy for him to really get on the game. It was unfortunate, but it was just frustrating. But I think Michy in this system it's just not working out, in my opinion. Now Everton, they get back into the game in the second half, and this is what's really annoying me. Tomorrow, I'm bringing out a video stating why we need to get rid of the 3-4-3 and use 4-3-3 or a new system. Because, and this is I don't even know how many times I've been seeing this now. Again, Everton, they switch to a front 2, especially when Rooney comes off later on as well. The minute teams just press, the minute teams man mark our 3 defenders and man mark the 2 in midfield, we struggle enormously to play out. And now it's very hard. You've got to understand where the options really, we're too deep to be able to play out. Really, the wing backs need to bomb forwards to create that space. I don't understand why they don't do that. I need to keep studying it more to really understand why. But maybe it's the distribution from the goalkeepers sometimes. Sometimes it just doesn't make any sense. Of course, they're told they have to play out from the back. Of course, if you hit it long, no one's going to win the ball in the air. So you're limited. I think a new system's needed where there's more options in midfield, where we can't just get man marked in so easily, because teams don't man mark the wing backs. You don't have to. They man mark the 3 centre backs, the 2 midfielders. We can't play out. What we should be doing to alleviate that is the inside forwards need to drop deeper to become outlets, or stay out wide to become outlets. But at the same time, it's very hard to distribute out because teams are flooding a lot of men forward to close us in. And Everton, they hit the crossbar with Lookman getting shots on the keeper, one-on-one opportunities, and it frustrates me because there's another game where we lose control and then we afford chances to the opposition, and it's not going to last. Now, I'm not one of these people where I'm only going to talk about the bad when it's happened. You can see a pattern of play. You can see this happening. This is why games like the Crystal Palace, for example, wasn't as random as all of us thought, because signs were being shown that we are getting found out here. It needs to change. I think a new system's needed, because another thing you have to take note of is that a team like Everton, Watford, Crystal Palace, they shouldn't be so confident pushing so many men forward to close us down. Now, most of the reason why these teams don't do it against the big teams is because if they do that, they know they can get played across through their, they know their press can get beaten, and they know that obviously you're affording easier opportunities for the bigger teams. But these teams don't worry about that because they know our counter-attacking threat is very limited, because who's the outlet on their counter-attack? No one's there. Whenever someone's collecting the ball from the front 3, it's always in central positions. Now, literally, the issue with the 3-4-3 is that it's too easy to man mark and close in. I'm an advocate for 4-3-3. I'm going to explain why I think that's best for tomorrow. It's going to be a massive video, so you guys definitely have to make sure you've got those notifications on so you're notified for it. But again, it's a so-so performance. It wasn't the greatest performance. We didn't create many chances. I felt it was a spirited performance by Everton, as I predicted it was going to be. But, you know, we're finding it too hard. And this, when we don't have Morata and Hazard, we can't really do too much offensively, because, again, Mitchie is one of the most key players in the system, because he's a striker, and the striker has to be creating the space for the inside forwards to get in behind. If he's not doing that, if he can't hold the ball or link up, it means nothing. Now think about it like this: when you see Morata playing, for example, how often is he linking up with both the guy on his right and the guy on his left? So how often is he even drifting off to the left hand side, sometimes letting Hazard playing through the middle? That's what you need. You need that fluidity, and you need players comfortable. Now, with Mitchie, he isolated Willian yesterday and isolated Musonda. He didn't create any space for them. So, you know, Musonda's not getting, you know, kicks out the game, man marks out the game. Same thing for Willian. Willian's not dropping too deep in positions, doing nothing. And it is pretty scary, because it doesn't even seem like Everton put in a masterclass defensive performance yesterday. It wasn't like that. I know we had some first-team players that weren't playing, but again, really, to me, it's Hazard and Morata really are the key ones. You could play a weaker team. They're the two main guys that's going to alleviate everything. But honestly, I don't think this 3-4-3 can continue. Performance wasn't the greatest. You know, promising performance from Ampadu. I like what we're seeing with his confidence and his leadership abilities. Musonda struggled. I explained why. It was justifiable why he struggled in this game. And it's a shame. And I'm not going to lie, I was disappointed that Conte took off Musonda for what? I mean, Pedro came on and did absolutely nothing. Now, again, when I complain about these types of things, it's not because this is why Musonda's not in the team, because he's not good enough. Because Pedro didn't do anything either. Now, when you see that your only player in the front three that does well is Eden Hazard, then surely there's something wrong with the system, and it's harder for the likes of you know, the Williams and Pedro to consistently perform well. I think we need to adapt the tactics, we need to change things up, but that's my opinions. But anyway, you guys, thank you for watching today's match review. Please like, comment and subscribe. I'm the EFC. This is Blue Lines TV, signing out.